Right, I think we are now live. We had some camera issues there. I think this is the 10th time we're running up YouTube live, and I think out of 10 times I've had 3 times we've been starting late due to camera challenges. So clearly need to do some work on getting cameras up and ready. So I can see we've got people here in the chat. We have 46 people online at the moment, and as always, I'd love if you just get into the chat, tell us where you're from, city and country. I'd like to see who are our 46 people connected here this morning, and apologies for starting 10 minutes late here this morning. So I see Chadia, great to have you. Ash, Neil M, Miedsi, ciao from Milan. Que bueno, Angels Roca, buona tarda Angels. Alba, great to have you here. Harshad, good to have you connected. How's that journaling going? I've got my journal here. Should we take notes on test camera setup? Brasil, Marcelo, tudo bem? Lorraine from Kinvara, beautiful spot to be trapped. Hope you've enjoyed these weeks. Javier from Madrid, que bueno verte. Egypt, Pakistan staying in Greece, Cologne, Germany, Beirut, Lebanon. So we have a wide range of people from around the world here. Now, let's go over to chat cam here so you can see the chat coming in. And what we're gonna cover in the session today is, let me pull out my list of the 7 beliefs. We've been working through the 7 beliefs of Vistage about leadership. Great leaders reject shortcuts, build the foundations of their leadership. Don't just try and go high without building solid foundations. Take time to work on your business, on your life, not just in the task, but thinking about where you're going and what you need and where 5-10 years from now needs to be. Seek perspectives. We're going to cover seek perspectives and curiosity today. Seek perspectives it's a very difficult thing to understand, that you see through your own eyes and with your own beliefs, and that's not the only way of seeing the world. And curiosity, it's very easy to fall into a place where your ego wants to be right, where what your soul wants to do is learn and grow. And what's going to win? Your ego being right, or your soul in being curious about this journey called life? Discipline and mentors we covered last week, and we rise by helping others will be what we're covering next Friday at 5 p.m. How to really, as a leader, rise your own level by really reaching out and helping others. And what we're going to talk about, seeking perspectives. And let me get myself set up here to switch over to our talk cam. And what I wanted to do on seeking perspectives, in Vistage, one of our beliefs is there are no new problems in the world. Any problem that you face as a human being, growing up as an adolescent, as a 20-year-old, as a 30-year-old, 50, 80, there are billions of people who have lived a life, who have been through where you are now. You are not the first person ever to face the problems that are in front of you in life. If you're in your 20s and wondering, is this the right person to marry? Billions of people have been there, have taken this decision, have gone through the process. And what we believe in Vistage, what I believe, having learnt the hard way at times, and through Entrepreneurs Organization, through Vistage, through teaching at IESE Business School, is that there are many people who have already lived what I have lived. And I can learn it all from scratch myself, or I can reach out and find someone who's 20 years further down the trek, find someone who's seeing from a different angle. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about on seeking perspectives it comes from a mentor that I had about 10 years ago. And this mentor shared a story about the human life and what it is to live well middle age. And middle age is anywhere from 35 to 55 years old. But this guy, when he shared this story with me, he was in his 80s, and he said there's essentially three phases of the human life: growing up, middle age, and coming back down towards the end. And what I'm going to do here is do some art as we share this. So let's see how we can do this on the camera. So if you imagine, this here is a human life, and down here is a poor drawing of a little baby in a nappy, and over here is the end of the time in this body on this planet. And this is the journey of life, and how we traverse the journey of life. When you're born as a baby, you live in your bedroom, your parents' house, and you believe that you see the whole world. So at this age, this is what you can see. You see your bedroom, you see your salon, you see the park near your house, you see your parents, and you think that's the whole world. At the age of 3, you go to nursery, you go out to school, and your vision is now higher. And you realize there was more to the world than just your bedroom, than your parents' house, than the local park. There's school, and you start to make friends. And maybe your parents had dreams for you. Now you meet friends, and one friend wants to play football for Barca Football Club. So you take that dream and you start to collect it and put it in your backpack. And you go, and when you're 12, you go from junior school to senior school. And you realize the world is bigger than you thought here. Your eyesight is now even higher. You see all of this. And when you're young, you think that you know everything. You think that this that you have seen is everything there is, because that's all you know. And as you're coming up, you're meeting other people, and you're hearing their goals and their dreams. And maybe your father wanted to play rugby for Ireland. Your mother wished that she'd learnt to speak French fluently. And what you do is you just take these dreams of other people and you go putting them into your backpack. And as a young person going from 0 to 3 to 5 to 12 to 18 to 20, here we are going to university. The world is bigger. My backpack gets even fuller. I meet a girl. We live together, and all of her dreams now become mine. And my backpack fills up with projects that I want to do, dreams I have, places I want to travel to, skills I'd love to have. And by the time you're 30, you still are in this world of thinking that you've seen everything, thinking that this is all there is. And your backpack at this stage is totally full of all of the projects of your parents, your grandparents, your school, everyone you've met, any dream that anyone's had. It costs you nothing just to pick up that dream and add it to the collection of things that you want to achieve in your life and add it into the backpack. Because on this journey up, you know that time is finite, but you don't believe it. You live as if you have infinite time, and you could just keep adding projects. There comes a moment in life where you take a step up, and for the first time, your view is not the mountain, it's actually to the horizon. And this mentor told me that this moment happens anywhere from 35 to 55 years old. The first step where you stand up and for the first time ever in your life, you really do see the horizon. And at exactly the same moment, 35 to 55 years old, where you see the horizon, you also get your very first glimpse down at the finiteness of your life. And what this mentor told to me is there are two types of grandfather. There's the positive, helpful, kind, caring, present, generous grandfather that's a real pleasure to be around. And there's the bitter, angry, victim, frustrated grandfather. And how you arrive down here is fundamentally due to a choice you take when you are here. There's two ways that you can live this moment of realizing the finiteness of life and realizing what the horizon really is. Because up at this point, your backpack is absolutely jammed full of every dream, every project, every skill you want to learn, every place you want to go. And if you don't unload this backpack and take out pretty much everything that isn't fundamentally yours, isn't a goal that really came from you, it's really your father's goal, your mother's goal, your friend's goal, society's ideal. If you don't take that backpack off and unload the weight, you're going to just tumble down and be an angry, frustrated old person. 35 to 55, there comes a moment when you see this glimpse, and it's a scary thing. What needs to happen for you to come down this hill, and for every step down this hill to be a positive step towards being at peace with yourself, a serene old person, a grandfather that really can give back wisdom to those around you, is that this backpack, you take it off, you put it on the floor, you empty it out, and you decide what are the really important ones, and everything else you are willing to let go of. And this project, 35 to 55 years old, of taking your backpack full of all these dreams and hopes and projects, taking it off, laying it on the floor, and slowly identifying the ones that really are important. That in this time that remains, there is time to do what is important. If you can do that, then the way you'll arrive down here is with serenity, with peace of mind, with a feeling that you have lived this journey of life. And for me, there's lost the pen lid here. The Warren Buffett has a story he tells, what's told about him, of this process of taking out all of the clutter that's in the bag of your dreams and laying it out. And the story is that Warren Buffett has 2 private jets, and he has a pilot called Steve. And for 5 years, Steve was working at Berkshire Hathaway, flying Warren around. And Warren doesn't like anyone just stuck in a role. And for 5 years, he'd seen Steve just flying jets. So on one trip, Steve was asked by Warren, he says, Steve, you've been flying aircraft here for us at Berkshire Hathaway for the last 5 years. I really like to see people growing and taking on new things. I'd love if you just help me understand what's important to you. And he asked Steve, would you take a couple of weeks and identify the 20 most important things in your life that you'd like to achieve in the rest of your life? And he said, Steve, take your time, do this well, really make sure that these 20 things capture the 20 most important projects, people, activities, achievements that you would like to have, to dedicate the rest of your life to. And Steve, as a corporate private jet pilot, you have a lot of time on your hands as a private pilot. So he had a lot of time over the next few weeks to create his list of the 20 projects that if he were to have completed by the end of his life, it would be a fulfilling life of achieving his goals. And after 6 weeks, there came a moment where Steve said, Warren, I've got the list. I've worked on it. I've really ensured that it's the top 20. And Warren said, good. Now what I would like you to do is identify the top 5 of those 20. So, really take time to really match each things and make sure that you've identified the top 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 most important projects, people, things that really, if you got those, you would be fulfilled at the end. And it took another few weeks of Steve sitting and thinking and comparing one by one these different projects and activities. And after another few weeks, Steve said, Warren, I've got the top 5. I've got the 20 and I've got the top 5. I've done the work. I've compared each of them. I'm sure the top 5 really are the top 5 out of this 20. And Warren said to him, good. What are you going to do with number 6 to 20? And Steve thought a little and he said, well, clearly 1 to 5 are very important, but number 6, number 7, they're still important. They're still in the top 20 most important things I'd like to achieve. And Warren said, no, the reason you won't do the most important thing is reason number 6, 7, and 8. What's going to stop you achieving the things that are most important to you? What's holding you back from investing in the relationships that are most important to you is not distraction from Facebook. It's not projects that are down on level 100 on your list. It's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th most important things. And seeking perspective, it is very difficult for someone at 20, at 30, at 40 to have the perspective to understand what life is going to be like 20, 40, 50 years later. I've just got off a call over the last hour with someone who is 15, 20 years older than me. And I was really interested in what this experience is being like for him. And a lot of the questions were selfish questions from my point of view, because I was really looking at what would it be like for me in 15 years? What needs to be in place in my life in 15 years if this type of economic impact, health impact were to strike again? What foundations do I need to start building now so that 15 years from now, whatever crisis were to come, whatever good opportunities were to come, I'm putting some seeds in now. And very often, the important seeds to plant now, my 47-year-old eyes cannot see, cannot judge, cannot tell what is important. It's only sitting down with someone who's 15, 20, 30 years further on down the path. And not everyone's perspective is useful. You know, if you know someone that is a negative, bitter victim down here, they are not someone that you want their perspective. Well, maybe you want their perspective so you know what not to do. But you want to find people that you look at their life and they're either further down the path than you, or they've got an area of life where they seem to have it together. And what I've learned is I never ask for their advice. Successful people, when they give you advice, it's never particularly helpful. They have a nice little recipe, but it's not really true. Very often when I meet someone who is 20 years older than me, the question that I will ask is, 20 years ago, what big things were going on in your life? Were there any decisions that you were struggling with? Were there any doubts that you had? Take me back. Where were you 20 years ago? What was going on? And over the last 15 years, some of the most profound lessons about how to live my life now, how to determine what's important, what's lesser important now, have come from listening to someone share the answer to that question. I find when I ask someone, hey, tell me what you think I should do, it's often not very helpful, that type of advice. What I want is not what they would do, I want their perspective, what they were looking at, what was important, what was lesser important. And when they then talk about 20 years ago, what were they paying attention to? What felt like it was important back then, but no longer is important from the perspective that they have? And I think one of the things that I hope in the world, and through Vistage and through EO and through my courses in IESE, is that whenever you face a major problem in life, before you look for a textbook, you think, who has already lived through this decision? Who is already 15, 20 years beyond having taken this decision? They seem to have done it well. And rather than looking at a textbook, go find that person and have a conversation and listen. And just listen to what life was like for them. And this idea that I think we really only learn two ways in life. One, through our own experience. Second, through the experience of other human beings. But only if we receive three parts to the communication. We need 3 parts. 1, what happened? 2, why was it important to you? 3, what was it like for you? What did it feel like going through the journey? And it's a lie if anyone says, oh, it was a simple decision. The decision at 20 to take this job or that job, if you think it was easy, it's because you don't remember what it was like for you when you were 20. One of the things that was inculcated in me from a very young age was just noting down every day in a journal what I'm thinking about, what life is like, what struggles I had. And I can look back to when I was 20 and 25, and it was a hard time. I didn't look like I was having a hard time, because at that age, you need to project outwards that you have a lot of things under control. At many ages, you need to project outwards that you have many things under control. But if I'm honest with what it was like being 14 and 16 and 20 and 25 and 28, there were some tough decisions that I was taking by myself, that I was scared. And my uncertainty meant that instead of reaching out and asking others for their perspectives, and I think back then I would probably ask them for advice, and that's a very dangerous thing. You don't want anyone's advice. If you're a 20-year-old and your father is giving you advice, don't listen to it. It's not for you. It's something he needs to say, but it's not for you. What's valuable is turning the question around and saying, when you were 20, what decisions were hard for you? What were you struggling with? What was going on? Where were you? In fact, my parents were interviewed by one of their granddaughters last week. The school had given a project, and they were to ask, when you were 12, what were you dealing with? Where were you? What was going on? And it was fascinating. I didn't see this conversation, but I heard from my brother how this conversation revealed things about my parents. Just instead of them giving advice, they were talking about what it was like for them to live being 10 or 20 or 30. So this thing is, when you want to get a good perspective from someone else, don't let them give you advice. Ask them to share what it was like for them to face a similar decision. Ask them how it was impacting them. What was important to them? What were they valuing at the time? What did they fear that they were going to lose if things didn't turn out at the time? And that way, if you get these 3 things, what happened, why it was important to you, and what was the inner experience like, what were you feeling, then you can use that experience and not make a mistake yourself, or not have to live the hard way to learn the lesson. But I do think a textbook, a leadership textbook, can't help, because what someone did in the past without why it was important to them and what it felt like when they were dealing with it, it's not going to help you be ready to deal with the tough decisions in your life. So this is sort of an idea on perspectives, and I think perspectives is really starting to think that the most important question you ask when you face any problem is, who has successfully dealt with this? And how can I have a conversation with them where I don't ask for their advice, I just ask, when you were facing this, tell me about it. What was important? What were you worried about? What were you paying attention to? Where were you focused on? What did you hope for? And what was the inner experience? What did you feel like? What were you struggling with? Who helped you? And if you ask these questions, the perspective becomes something that you can use to really commit yourself to your decisions. And I guess, our lives and the lives of our kids are getting more and more necessary to take significant life decisions as we progress. My grandfather, when he was 21, he passed some exams and he got a job at the Bank of Ireland. 65 years old, he retired, 2/3 final pension. So really, the last time he took a decision about the direction of his life in a professional sense was at 21 when he showed up for the exams. Today, each of us listening, you, me, we're taking a decision every 2 or 3 years about whether what we're doing right now is the right thing for us, whether we should change, look for something else. And it can be a very exhausting life if every one of those decisions you're taking by yourself, every one of those decisions you're taking only with your own life experience, only with your own eyes that have seen, in my case, 47 years, but not the fullness of how decisions I could take today will impact me in 10, 15, 20 years. So this thing of, we believe great leaders seek perspectives. Seek perspectives from suppliers, seek perspectives from customers. Just, there's the silly story of two blindfolded men feeling an animal, and one feels this trunk and one feels a leg, and they're fighting over what it is. And they're just touching two different parts of an elephant. Really understanding, really getting deep down that your perspective on life is just one small glimpse of life, and you have to raise up and get other people's perspectives in order to see the terrain as it truly is. So let's switch back over to our chat cam here. Let's see what we've got. So we've got Vlad from Romania, Sidant on Letting Go by David Hawkins. I have a video on the surrender experiment, which isn't by David Hawkins, but it linked me to David Hawkins' work. I love the ideas of David Hawkins, and there's quite a few posts on my blog about letting go, the surrender experiment, and just the stages of consciousness in terms of moving from fear and shame through to anger and pride through to love and then reason. So to me, Sidant, Letting Go by David Hawkins. An easier work to access these ideas is the book The Surrender Experiment, and I forget the name of the author just a moment, but there's a video on my YouTube from about 2-3 years ago where I talked about the surrender experiment. Fantastic book. Banin, I love you too, thank you for that. Rafael from Argentina, Charlotte from Montreal. Let's see where we're at. Luis Federico Gayon from Wexford. That's a very Irish name, Luis. How does, I assume, a Spaniard end up in Wexford? Wahida, why? So the important decisions are based on our experiences. I'd need a bit more context on what the question is. After 18 years involved in IESE Business School, one of the things you learn as a business school professor is the answer to every question is it depends. The wisdom comes in, depends on what. So in taking decisions, there's no right or wrong answer. It will always depend. What wisdom is knowing where to pay attention. Linda from New York City, thank you, kind words. And Lily Duan Elvin from Taiwan, best speaker I've ever seen. Well, I hope when this coronavirus lockdown comes to a little bit of an end and we can begin to travel a bit more, because I definitely miss standing in rooms full of students and talking through these things. I have to say this little camera looking back at me is a very poor replacement for what was my life before coronavirus, which is being in a room with 70 people interested in these concepts of how to live well, how to take good decisions both for business and for my own life, how to build trusted relationships, and I miss human contact. Florian, great to have you on here. Jamie Doherty from California, pleasure to have you here. Dina Lenko, can you please give an example of a project you had to let go if possible? And I think, Dina, one of the moments where I had to let go was, I think 2009. I was living in Barcelona and I had just gone through bankruptcy, just gone through separation. So faced, for the first time in my life, there was nothing to hold me in Barcelona. And I remember just kind of thinking, well, I could go anywhere. I don't have to stay here. if there's a better life for me in Dublin, in London, in York, well, I should go. I need to stop right now and decide. And I decided that I'd been living a life in Barcelona where I was trying to relive some of what I remembered from Ireland, relive some of the best things of London, and recreate it in Barcelona. And it just struck me in 2009 that the best life in Barcelona is the best life in Barcelona. Not a life you could live in Dublin, tried to mix in here. And that I needed to let go of some of the ideas I had about what a good life from an Irish perspective needed to be. And one of the things that I did back then was I created what I called the perfect 24 hours. And I just took a sheet of paper and put all of the hours on a clock, 5 a.m. through to 5 p.m., 5 p.m. back through to 5 a.m. and thought, if I could create a template for the perfect day, if every day the rest of my life met this, what would I want to put into the perfect average day? And one of the things that struck me is I would get up in the morning, the first thing I would do is go for a run up in Carretera de las Aguas, which is on the mountain behind Barcelona, which is something you cannot do in Dublin, you cannot do anywhere else in the world. It only exists here in Barcelona. And when I'm running up there on that trail, it gives me a feeling that I am grateful and lucky to live here, not anywhere else, and I'm here. Also, looking through that perfect average day, I realized that there's some things that would be wonderful if I was living in Dublin, but I'm not living there. So Dina, one of the times that I deliberately let go of some projects, some ideas, some thoughts about what a good life would be was in 2009, when I kind of lost everything and I had to decide, do I stay here and rebuild a life here in Barcelona? Or if I'm ever going to complain and feel like a victim that it's been hard as a foreigner to build a life here, well, I need to let that go and go where it's going to be easier. If not, I'm going to have to start here and build the life that I want that is based on what you can do here with the people that are here. But yeah, letting go of things is sometimes a lot harder than starting new things. Meadsy, listing 20 things to achieve sounds blooming hard. Well, living a fulfilling life it requires some planning and some discipline and some effort. An architect doesn't just begin putting bricks on some land to build a house. An architect spends a lot of time designing the whole house, building the whole house on paper before a single brick is laid. And in our own lives, this gift of imagination, this power that we have as human beings to see something in our mind before we put it into place in the world, to not use this power of our imagination is to not use one of the most critical and unique functions of the human being. I think Aristotle said that fundamentally our purpose is what we are uniquely able to do. And the unique capacity of human beings is imagination. No animal is able to look at the desert in Utah and see Las Vegas. It only is a human being that could see a barren desert in Las Vegas in the 1950s and think, I see the Taj Mahal here, I see the Eiffel Tower here, and build Las Vegas. And to not use your imagination to plan a world before you get into it is to waste one of the most incredible powers we have as human beings. So Meadsy, not listing 20 things is a much harder way of living life. I think no one ever reached the summit of Everest and went, oh, look at that, isn't that funny? How did that happen? Anyone who climbed Everest, for 20 years it was on their goal list. For the last 10 years it was up at the top of their goal list. For the last 5 years they've been training every day, they've been pulling together resources every day. And 5 years of focusing on that as the number one most important thing is what leads you to stand one day on the summit. So not every human is going to stand on the summit of Everest. Not every human is going to make an impact. But we all get to choose. And I think if you can put on paper a couple of things, and maybe it starts with a big long list of just put down all the things you've ever heard of. I have a 400-page Word document that has every place I want to go, every country I want to visit, every person I'd like to meet. And the person who pushed me to put this together was Dr. John DeMartini. He ran a program called Your Master Life Plan. And this course was 3 days from pretty much 8 in the morning through till midnight in a room of 50 people typing at my computer and writing down everything I want to do the rest of my life, every person I want to meet, writing letters to all the important relationships in my life. And I remember when I was there in the room kind of thinking, yeah, this is a crazy course. I've traveled to London with 50 people around me and we don't talk to each other. We're just sitting still, thinking about our own life, thinking about our own future. So I went up and I asked Dr. John DeMartini the question, I expected something more from this course. Like we just sit in silence writing and you just sit here in silence at the front. And he said, would you do it if I wasn't sat here? Would you do it if you weren't sat in this room? And my answer was no. It would be something I would have known that I intended to do, but it took paying £1,000 and sitting for 3 days surrounded by 50 people working in silence really on my own document to create this list. So Meadsy, it's blooming hard, but this hard work makes the rest a whole lot easier. Alexandra, great to see you on here. I hope all is going well as the weekend comes in. Julio, the 400-page document, there's some parts of it that I wouldn't share with anyone, but I can definitely show you bits of it. And some of the questions that are in there I can share with anyone that wants. So, maybe we'll find a way on one of these videos to go through some of the sections in that 400-page document. Because I think one of the powerful things that Dr. DeMartini had done is just lay out what are all the questions you need to answer in your mind if you are to begin focusing your time and attention on what is important and beginning to remove some of the crap that fills up your life. Vijis, happy to be there. So we have 13 minutes left. Well, I'm going to switch over to our talk cam and cover this wonderful, where are we here? Curiosity. Marcelo, how about trust? Is it preferable to earn trust or give trust? And what will be the next leadership paradigm? Well, that's a big question. And in today's world, when you see politicians like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Bolsonaro, populist politicians coming to the front that seem to go against everything that I would believe makes someone trustworthy, it sort of pushes you to question whether trust really is valuable. And I have a lot to say on that. And I do think it is a very dangerous place to go where we stop thinking that becoming trustworthy, stop thinking that character, stop thinking that being aware of the character of human beings is not just trusting someone because of fame, because they've got Instagram followers, because they make good noise. Florian, I look forward to that metaphor from Rose. So we're going to switch back, cover curiosity, and then we've got a few minutes just to close off today's session. And curiosity, let's talk about curiosity. And to me, the day that you lose curiosity is really the day you stop growing. And curiosity, to me, in each of us, there are two forces. There's a force on the one side of our ego that wants to be right, that wants to be respected, that wants to be treated as if it's important. And there's the part of our soul which wants to learn, which has a curiosity to see all other things, to grow in your capacity to understand the world, and maybe go beyond understand. I do think a human being is not an entity to be understood, and to try to understand another human being, to try to put them in a box where you can label, you put this in and you'll get this out. human beings are much too complex to be understood. Even ourselves, the way we respond to the world, the way we respond to our goals, you can try and come up with a cause-effect model for yourself, but I think the best thing you can do is just learn to laugh at yourself and think, wow, how interesting it is to be human. You know, this morning I got up planning to do X, and I've managed to not do X all day. How interesting it is to be human. What crazy entities we are. We have the capacity to do such great things, and we have the capacity to sit in our pajamas a whole day and do nothing. And rather than self-flagellating and being angry and frustrated with yourself for being human, the curiosity is just to wonder what pushed me to live today like that. And to me, Einstein had a saying: we can live as if everything is a miracle, or we can live as if nothing is a miracle. It's black and white. You've got to decide a stance that you take to the world, that this universe is a miracle, that life itself is just a miracle, that if I stop to think about what consciousness is and how it came to be and what it is to be able to look into a camera, talk to people, touch, feel, see colors, and just think how incredible it is. This is living as if everything is a miracle. The other approach, living as if nothing is a miracle, living as if everything can be explained, as if everything can be broken down into little bits, and that one day we'll have a giant encyclopedia that just lays out the answers to all things, and there'll be no more need for curiosity because we'll have all the answers. Well, I think it's a much better way of living, of believing that you want to let your soul grow. And in order to let your soul grow, you got to shut down your ego's need to be right. And curiosity, the thing that kills curiosity is when my ego feels the need to be right, the need to be respected, the need to be famous, the need to have things under control. And what I've noticed over these last 9 weeks is how I'm feeling about myself any given day. If I'm feeling a bit frustrated, if I'm feeling as if I haven't made progress, if I'm feeling like I've wasted this quarantine time and I haven't really used it to get clear on who I am, get clear what these 25 projects of the rest of my life are, stop doing some of the things that don't fill me up right now. If I'm in that state of feeling angry with myself is when I am defensive when someone says that something that I did was wrong or wasn't the best. So I noticed that my ego and my defensiveness is much higher when I'm not feeling good about myself. And I remember, I think probably 6-7 weeks ago, I was playing cards with my wife and with Alexandra, who I don't know if is still here on the chat. If you are, Ali, great to have you on here. We're playing a card game which comes out of China called Dao Di Zhu. And I've probably butchered the pronunciation, but Dao Di Zhu is a brilliant card game for 3 players. And probably 7 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks, no, this would be 4 weeks into quarantine, the 3 of us were playing a card game. And I think a couple of things hadn't worked out in the morning for me. We're playing the card game, and I think I lost like 3 or 4 hands in a row. And I threw my cards down and like a little infant spoilt child had a bit of an epi-fit and stormed away and walked back to my office. And it was because I had allowed my need to win, my need to be right, my need to be respected to be much higher than what I would say is really more important to me, which is to be proud to see how well my daughter plays cards, to be happy to be surrounded by 2 smart people who are better than me at this moment in playing the cards that they have, and that I'm going to learn more by losing, but being aware of what are they doing that I wasn't aware of, what are they seeing that I wasn't aware of. But curiosity very quickly gets shut down the moment my ego pops up. When my ego pops up and I want to win, I become defensive and angry, and a little touch just sets me off. So curiosity, I think it takes a lot to cultivate a state of mind where you can remain curious even when you struggle. Remain curious even when you're losing some things that are of importance to you. But if curiosity goes, I don't know what, your future is really closing down the moment that you don't practice keeping curiosity to the world open. And these two things that we've talked about today, seeking other perspectives and curiosity. And one of the things I share in my course at IESE is that through experience, I believe nobody ever does or says something that they believe is stupid from their point of view. So if you see somebody else do something that you think is totally ridiculous, totally stupid, it's a very dangerous place to put yourself in this thing. That must be a moron. The question that I try and ask myself is, what are they seeing that makes their behavior a positive thing? Yet what must they be believing? What must be they paying attention to? What perspective must they be taking on this situation for what they're doing to be seen as a rational, positive step from their point of view? And very often, if I can stop looking at my judgment through my values of their action and step up and think, what's important to them that makes this action reasonable? What are they looking at that makes this action something that I can understand? I will often find that there's new perspectives that I hadn't seen. And maybe I still believe that if I was in their situation, I wouldn't take the action. But this approach has really reduced the level of judgmental that I bring into life. And at the age of 47, I'm still pretty judgmental. I still very quickly put people into good and bad boxes. And I'm really working to stop this snap judgment of that's good, that's bad. And begin to just stop and just treat everything as curious. As it's not good or it's not bad. It's what is that person looking at that makes that behavior a positive thing from their point of view? What perspective are they taking? What values must they be holding? What do they believe is important for that action to be something that a rational person would do? And often just by taking that non-judgmental attitude and asking the questions to understand what are they looking at, they then start to engage with me in a way and listen to the perspective that I have. And I think curiosity, if you keep it alive, you're a better communicator. Curiosity, if you keep it alive, you're a better listener. Curiosity, if you keep it alive, you're a better father, mother, child, grandfather. It is a very dangerous thing the moment that curiosity shuts down and you want to be right and never feel like you're wrong and never feel like there's any uncertainty. So I hope, even though we're in a time of great uncertainty, I think a couple of weeks ago there was a webinar with an Indian guru called Sadhguru, and he said, if you are not feeling uncertainty right now, you are a moron. Right now there is uncertainty. To not see uncertainty is to be blind. There is uncertainty, and when there's uncertainty, when uncertainty goes up, our need to control goes up. And our curiosity can drop down and we lock onto some absolutes and hold on to them and become judgmental about what is right and what is wrong. And I think in this time of uncertainty, making sure your curiosity stays high, that you don't let yourself fall into easy judgments of he's wrong, he's right, this is bad, that's good. But asking yourself, what perspective must that other person be seeing? What must they be valuing for this action or that statement or that way of responding to be a reasonable perspective? And to me, this idea of Einstein, if you can cultivate an attitude of looking at the whole universe as a miracle, every little thing as a miracle, it doesn't mean you stop using the tools of science to explore and to learn. And medicine has so changed our life by applying the scientific process to exploring. But I think you can combine being a scientist and steadily increasing our knowledge of what works, but also maintaining an incredible openness to the size of the universe, a curiosity of what else is out there, of wow, what it is to look at a color. So as we come to our weekend, Thank you for, again, checking in with me. We're going to go back to the chat now for a little minute, and then I'm going to let you guys enjoy your weekend. Wahida, should we encourage children to be curious? I think the best way of encouraging anyone is living it yourself. Your example is far more impactful than what you tell someone to do. Diogenes stayed in a wine barrel. I'm sure there's context above. My father has a saying, context is worth 90 IQ points. If ever you're communicating to someone and they're not understanding, it's probably because you're not giving them some context that is entirely obvious to you, but they don't have that context. That most people are capable of understanding a huge amount. I listened to Jordan Peterson on a live stream, probably a video from a couple of months back, and he was saying, we're living at an incredible time. That for the first time ever, now through YouTube, through this live stream, through Instagram stories, through Facebook video, the spoken word is a more powerful way of communicating than the written word. This has never happened before since agriculture in human society, that the spoken word has become more powerful than the written word. You know, for the last 2,000 years, if you could put good words down into documents, that was what gave you political power. If you wrote good letters, that's what gave you political power. Today, 30 years ago, a president of the United States could hit you with the spoken word. Today, through YouTube, more and more people, instead of learning through the written word, through books, can learn through the spoken word, can learn through TED Education, Khan Academy. And what Jordan Peterson was saying is that what we're learning is people are much better at understanding complex ideas when listening to the spoken word. It's a lot harder for many people to take in a complex idea when you're reading it in a book. And I think there's a huge number of people who are alive today who, when they listen to a well-explained idea, it's obvious to them. But when they have to read a book, they struggle to pull the pieces and make it clear for themselves. A conversation, a dialogue, or listening to someone who's able to explain it in the spoken word, we are much, much more capable of understanding complex ideas than the last 2,000 years has given us credit for. Because what's hard is learning from a written book by yourself in a library. What can be engrossing and engaging is someone who's really good at conveying a complex idea in spoken word through dialogue and chat. So we are at a time where if you can learn to use the spoken word, we can reach more people with the spoken word now than ever before. And this is a turning point in humanity where the written word is not going to ever be as powerful as the spoken word again. It will still play a place in terms of books and becoming an author. You know, an author, you are an author because you've written a book, because you know. But I think the writer of the book in the future, they'll write the book, but the way they get their idea out into the world is through speaking. And I certainly know, there's some great proponents of this. Simon Sinek, he's written books, but the way he gets his ideas out into the world is the spoken word, the 18-minute TED Talk, the 5-minute little conversation. And I think that's an incredibly powerful way of using the book almost for your own development to really get clear on ideas, but using the spoken word to reach the masses and really get ideas out. And Simon Sinek, he's written a book that probably, it's probably hundreds of thousands have bought the book. Why? Far less have read it, but millions have watched the TED Talk. And an 18-minute TED Talk that you get the idea and you can put it into place, millions of people begin to put it into place. A thick book that would take 20, 50 hours of reading is a lot less likely to become something that shifts the way people behave in the world. So let's all get really good at the spoken word. Let's remain curious. Let's pay attention. I think you learn about speaking by watching how others do it. Watching a great TED Talk and stopping and thinking, how did they start? How are they keeping my attention? How are they laying out the argument? How are they doing it? So on that note, juiced, Julio, thank you. Simon Sinek, and I love the way Simon Sinek shares stories. I pay a lot of attention to the way Simon Sinek speaks. So less to what he's saying and more how he shares his ideas. There's always a story, and it's always something that you can really engage with. And once he's captured you with the simple metaphor, then he goes to the complex idea. And I think this is a very powerful way that Simon Sinek uses to use the spoken word to pull you into something simple and understandable, and then move you up into the complexity of what the deeper idea means. So, Simon Sinek, when he's talking about why, the TED Talk is a very powerful story. I also love the infinite game. I've been recommending that idea of the infinite versus the finite game, and trying to apply the idea of the infinite game to my own life and my own business. So maybe one of our next sessions we can talk about what this approach of life, of treating business and treating your own life not as a finite game where you can win and other people need to lose, but an infinite game. And an infinite game is a game where you don't win by the other person stopping, you win by making it engaging to everyone. An infinite game keeps going and is a success because it is engaging to everyone. And very often seeking to win, and the experience of the other person being of losing was they're going to give up. And the world, when one country, no one country can decide global warming without engaging with the rest. So no country is going to win climate change. It's going to be an infinite game where it has to be something that all countries and all people can engage with, and it's something that has some positive to everyone. On that note, it's great to connect on these Fridays. I'll be back here again next Friday, 5 p.m. I hope to see some of you connected, and we will be touching on the 7th belief of Vistage. We've covered reject shortcuts, work on your life, seek perspectives, curiosity, discipline, find trusted mentors, and next week we will touch we rise by helping others. And one of the tweets that I liked this week is, when you try to help another from something that is not one of your strengths, you're neither helping the other nor helping yourself. And I think helping others doesn't mean just spraying money and ideas and advice. It's becoming really clear where you have a role to play in assisting others. And if you're going to help another, you need to know how you're going to let them help you. Because if you think that you can give without receiving, then you've got a flawed view of the world. The only way I can help you is that I allow you at the same time to actually help me. And it has to be an equitable transaction. So helping others, I want to touch next week on an idea that there's 4 levels of relationship: empathy, sympathy, apathy, antipathy. And an empathetic relationship where I see you as a complete human being and I see you as fully capable of achieving what it is that you are here on this earth to do, that is a powerful relationship. A sympathy relationship where I feel pity for you, where I don't see you having the capacity to overcome the challenges in front of you, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to help you from a position that I am better than you, is a very damaging interaction, both as a parent, as a friend, as a colleague at work. And learning not to engage with people from a position of sympathy, from a position where I feel that I have something that you don't have and I'm going to be the helper. It needs to be a two-way process where I am open to receiving and I am open to giving. And we'll touch on that next Friday, 5 p.m. Again, would love, let's just close off with, we'll go with, if you just stick, as we come to finish, one word. How are you doing as the weekend's about to start? What's one word that would capture your emotional state as we close down Friday the 22nd of May and we move towards the weekend? And here in Barcelona, the weekend is very... So Gregor, great to have you. Reino, great to have you here. John Harrington, great to have you here. Chadia, great Chris Bors, Neil M, have a great weekend. Ezekiel, great to have you here. So again, get your one word, how you doing as you move forward into the weekend. Excited, Harshad, glad to hear. Joachim, hopeful. My own word, if I think about how I'm feeling right at the moment, I'll write it into the chat here. My word, let's get... So my own word, energized. So we have gratitude and love, curious, Chadia, infinite possibilities, Faisal, inspiring, Nicholas, lost. The first step in becoming found is to recognize that you're lost. Being honest about where you are is the most important thing. Stefan Nad, great to have you here. Great to have the messages over the last day or two. Thank you for your comments on my live stream with on LinkedIn. Jagannath, remain curious. Maitham, relax with family. Wahida, spoken is more powerful than written. I think spoken is more powerful in terms of getting complex ideas out to the most people. Written word, a lot of people struggle to be able to take on a complex idea. But a spoken word and dialogue, I think it's got a power to get complex ideas out in a way that the written word can only achieve for a limited number of people. Javier, qué bueno verte, espero todo bien por Madrid, espero que levanta esta cuarentena pronto. Alba, enthusiastic. Ratina, taking myself to be myself. Alan, great to have you, inspired. Neil, recover. Rui, tudo bem. Muito obrigado. Reino, open. Ezekiel, explore. Jagannath, gratitude. Vanu, happy to see you all. Joan, energized. Rui from Lisbon, Portugal. Nicholas, I'm lost, but I found myself on your live, which is already something. Nicholas, great to have you here. And years ago, I wrote down my mission. And my mission is to find my own path to self-belief so that I can help others find their path to self-belief. And Nicholas, if a small bit of self-belief, a small bit of being okay with where you are, that wherever you are, that's where you need to be. And if you're honest about where you are, and if you are open and present and you pay attention, the path will come. But to lie about where you are, to try and deceive yourself by pretending you are something that you are not, you will become only more lost. So we're gonna close this down in a few seconds here. Dina Lenko, great to have you. Optimistic. Nivis, plan and focus. Asma, life is beautiful no matter what. And I love the Joseph Campbell phrase, we must let go of the life we have planned in order to live the life that is waiting for us. And Dina, when we talk about letting go, I find it hard to let go of my plans for the future. I find it to let go of the plans I had for Semana Santa, for Easter, for this summer, for the travels, for the conferences I was going to speak at. And I still find it hard to let go of those ideas I had for the future. So on this note, Julio, hopeful, Chadia, you're welcome. When I give out this inspiration in your chat, come back, I get energy. Renee, great to have you on here. So we're gonna hit the end stream button and let's see, we've had 878 playbacks, 88 concurrent at the moment. Excellent. Miquel, qué bueno. Espero verte en Starbucks, aunque el Starbucks donde nos vemos está cerrado ahora. Hasta la vista. 3, 2, 1, and